Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I'm Raymond. When my girlfriend invited me to dinner with her parents, she made it clear it was a big deal. And when someone you care about makes a heartfelt request, you show up. So I agreed, expecting your standard evening. Dinner, light conversation, maybe some slightly awkward small talk. What actually unfolded? She laughed at me and mocked me, right in front of her family, in Spanish. She assumed I'd be clueless. What she didn't know was, I understood every single word. And before that night ended, I gave her a surprise she never saw coming. Let's rewind to when we first met. I had just started working at a mid-sized pharmaceutical firm. It was an entry-level position, mostly internal documentation, shipping logs, routine reports. Not glamorous, but the pay was fair, and the growth path looked solid. It was during one of those regular days, buried in paperwork, that I first encountered Valeria. She worked for a logistics partner of ours, handling inter-branch package runs. That day, she dropped off a padded envelope addressed to my boss. He was out, and I was covering his deliveries. Initially, it seemed like nothing, just another courier making a drop. She walked in with a no-nonsense, all-business vibe. And for some reason, that made me want to crack a joke, just to see if I could get her to smile. I blurted out something goofy about how our office must be the highlight of her route. It wasn't exactly comedy gold, but she grinned. From then on, whenever she came by with deliveries, she started hanging around a bit longer. At first, she asked about my job. Then she got more personal, started asking about me. Pretty soon, the deliveries were just an excuse. There was a calm, genuine warmth to her that made conversation easy. And before long, I found myself wanting to be around that energy. I was single, unattached, and here was someone who genuinely intrigued me. She seemed to feel something too. So I didn't hesitate. One afternoon, during a routine drop-off, as she turned to leave, I casually asked, "Got plans tonight?" I expected the usual, out with friends or taking it easy. Instead, she smiled and said, "Sleep? Just sleep." We both cracked up. That answer caught me off guard, and suddenly any tension melted away. That's when I thought, here's my shot. I told her, I've got a better plan. There's this new place a buddy recommended. Great atmosphere, amazing food. You might like it. She paused, like she was thinking it over. Then she gave a little nod and said, "All right." I got her number. That night, we sat across from each other at a restaurant that lived up to the hype, stylish but not too loud, cozy lighting. We talked for hours. Music, food, random things that somehow felt important. It was one of those rare nights where everything just clicks. After that, we kept in touch, texting, calling. I started looking forward to her messages. It didn't take many more dates for me to realize I was falling for her. Soon enough, I stopped beating around the bush. I looked her straight in the eye and asked, "Will you be my girlfriend?" She smiled and said yes. I walked out of that cafe feeling like I'd just hit the jackpot. And for a while, it really felt like I had. For the first 3 years, things with Valeria were solid. Not a whirlwind romance, but stable and real. We took weekend trips, binged absurd TV shows, stayed up late just talking. She fit in with my friends. I got used to her little quirks, even the strange ones. Sure, we had the occasional disagreement, but nothing serious enough to shake the foundation. Then her younger sister got married, and I noticed a shift. Subtle, but there. Suddenly, Valeria started bringing up marriage more often. First playfully, then with more weight. She'd talk about her parents' hopes, how in her culture, love wasn't the only factor. Family expectations played a big role, and they expected her to settle down. I got it. I respected that. Her family was close, deeply traditional. I understood the pressure, but I wasn't quite ready to pop the question. Not because I didn't love her. I did, but I'd promised myself I wouldn't enter marriage broke and scrambling. I was up for promotion I'd worked hard to earn, and with that bump in pay, I could finally afford the wedding she'd always imagined. So I asked her to be patient a little longer. I explained that a promotion was near. Just hang in there. She said she understood, but something in her shifted. She started pulling away. Slower replies, ignored texts. She was there, but emotionally distant, colder, like she was quietly stepping back. I brought it up. She brushed it off. Then, a few days before the weekend, she texted me, "Are you free this weekend? My parents want to meet you." I stared at my phone. It caught me completely off guard. Sure, we were serious, but meeting the parents, that's a big step. Honestly, I didn't feel ready. My first reaction was to decline. I even started typing out a polite excuse. But before I could hit send, another message came through. Seriously? What's more important than meeting my parents? That stopped me. I had no real excuse. I wasn't busy. I was just nervous. Meeting someone's parents is tough. Expectations are unclear, and one bad impression can ruin everything. I tried calling her to explain better, but she stood firm. If we're serious, this shouldn't be an issue. She wasn't wrong, and I didn't want another argument. We'd had a few lately. I didn't want this to become one more. So I said, "Okay." The tone of her reply changed instantly. "Great. They'll love you," she said, full of confidence. That gave me a bit of comfort. Still, I knew I had to bring my A game. First impressions matter, especially with family. So I got ready, picked a solid bottle of wine, dressed in dark jeans, a blazer, and clean shoes. Even looked up dinner etiquette, just in case. By Saturday, I looked like I was heading to a corporate interview. And in a way, I was proving I was worthy of their daughter. I drove over with a wine-riding shotgun, parked, took a deep breath, and gave myself a pep talk. Be respectful. Be yourself. You've got this. Then I rang the bell. Dinner started off smoothly. Warm greetings, lots of smiles. Her dad gave me a solid handshake. We sat in the living room while she and her mom finished things up in the kitchen. Her dad offered me a drink. We made small talk. He asked thoughtful questions, and I answered honestly, doing my best not to sound too rehearsed. I thought, all right, this might actually go okay. Her mom called us in to eat. The table looked incredible. I mentally thanked the universe. I was genuinely glad to be there. Dinner kicked off well. Her dad kept up the conversation, mostly about my job. I could tell he was sizing me up. I stayed composed, answered clearly. But then, everything shifted. Her mom said something in Spanish. Then the whole table erupted in laughter. Everyone but me. Now, I speak Spanish. Not perfectly, but enough to understand. I didn't react. Just kept eating, pretending I missed it. But I heard everything. What she said. Brutal. She made fun of my job, claimed it wasn't good enough to support their daughter. And the laughter? That wasn't kind. Then her dad chimed in, also in Spanish, saying I seemed the least ambitious of any guy Valeria had brought home. That one stung. Then Valeria herself jumped in, said she was just managing me, that she only brought me there so they could meet me before she found someone better. That moment, I'll never forget. I stayed calm on the outside, but inside, I was shattered. The warm room suddenly felt ice cold. Her mom looked at me and asked, in Spanish, if they were sure I didn't understand. Valeria laughed and said I was too dumb to get it. Then, like nothing had happened, her mom turned to me in English. "Are you enjoying the food, Raymond?" I looked up, smiled, and said, "Yes, it's delicious." And it really was. The food was amazing, but everything else left a bitter taste. After dessert, I stood up, looked around the table, and calmly thanked them for the meal, for having me speaking in perfect Spanish. Clear, slow, deliberate. The room went still. Her dad, who'd been all smiles, suddenly stiffened. Her mom blinked, and Valeria, her face turned ghostly. That smug expression vanished. Still speaking Spanish, I told them I'd understood every word they said that night. Every insult, every backhanded remark, every cruel joke. Then I grabbed my coat, gave a polite nod, and walked out. In 3 years with Valeria, I never mentioned I'd studied Spanish for 4 years in high school. I wasn't fluent, but I could catch on. I knew enough to follow the tone and meaning. I sat through that entire dinner, hearing them tear me down while pretending I didn't get it. Ironically, the only line I rehearsed that night was, "Thank you for having me." Just wanted to leave a good impression. When I got home, my phone was lit up over 10 missed calls. A few texts, too. That frantic, guilty scramble. She kept asking why I never told her I knew Spanish, like that was a betrayal. Not the mockery, not letting her family ridicule me. I stared at my screen, then flipped the phone face down. I didn't block her. I didn't reply. I just let the silence speak for me, because after what I heard at that table, she didn't deserve another word. Sunday morning, I was sprawled on the couch, half watching some random documentary. Still hadn't touched my phone. I figured silence had more than anything else I could offer. That was the plan, until I heard a knock. I already knew who it was. I got up, opened the door, and there she was. Valeria. Angry, exhausted, confused. Her first words, "Why are you ignoring me?" Straight to the point. I didn't blink. I looked at her and said, "I don't owe you anything." And I meant it. Whatever we had, it ended at that table. She tried to brush it off, said I was taking it too seriously, claimed it was all a joke. But here's the truth. Intent doesn't erase impact. Some things you don't say about someone you love. And the way she laughed, that wasn't innocent. That was someone completely okay with disrespecting me. She tried stepping inside. I didn't budge. I stopped her, told her flatly, "You're not welcome here." Her expression changed. She wasn't expecting that. Maybe she thought I'd argue or cave. But I didn't. I closed the door and locked it. The silence didn't last long. She started calling, texting, sending voice messages. First, the usual, "You're overreacting. Let's talk." Then it turned ugly. Guilt trips, name-calling, accusing me of being cold and dramatic. I let it pile up until it just became background noise. Then I blocked her. Phone, socials, all of it. I needed peace. I saw her clearly now, and I knew I deserved more. So I gave that to myself. Walking away wasn't painless. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. There were good memories. I really believed we had something meaningful. But after that dinner, after seeing the person she became when she thought I couldn't understand, I couldn't pretend anymore. Respect is a line. Once it's crossed, there's no going back. So I left. The days after were heavy. I kept asking myself if I'd missed red flags, if I could have done anything differently. But the reality is, some people wear their masks so well, you only see the cracks once it's too late. I had to accept that. Stop blaming myself. And move forward. That's exactly what I started doing. I turned inward. Focus on my goals, my work, my health, all the things I'd set aside. I dove into projects, finally picked up books I'd been ignoring, reconnected with friends. I wasn't trying to replace her. I needed to understand the space she left. Sit with it. Learn from it. I won't pretend I'm completely over it. Healing takes time. But I'm getting there. And what keeps me grounded is knowing I didn't stoop to her level. I walked away with dignity. One day, I'll meet someone who truly sees me and doesn't play games. But until then, I'm okay alone. Actually, better than okay. I'm rediscovering who I am, minus the noise. If there's one thing this taught me, it's that self-respect is non-negotiable. No matter how much you care for someone, you have to care for yourself more. That dinner might have marked the end of a relationship, but for me, it was the start of something better, a life that's calm, honest, and fully mine. Thanks for watching.